This video is brought to you by Raycon.
Hey Arlo? Yeah, alternate universe Arlo? Why are we having this ad read adventure in a cave?
Because we're showing off all the unique and even outlandish places we can enjoy music thanks to our Raycon everyday earbuds. Also, the room we're shooting in has poor acoustics, so we need to mask the echo.
Oh!
Indeed, my Raycons fit so comfortably thanks to their sleek, low-profile design and the assortment of different sized silicone tips they came with that I can listen to music while I explore tunnels all day. They never fall out, which is good because it's pretty dark in here. Yeah, and I haven't found any outlets down here, so it's great how they last up to 8 hours on a charge and up to 32 hours using the charging case. I love how many nifty features these Raycons have. 3 distinct sound profiles to fit any kind of music, and the ability to take calls at the touch of a button when we're not in a cave. We really gotta start doing these ad reads in normal places again. Maybe next time. Isn't it crazy that you can get this much quality at about half the price of other premium brands? And you can get 15% off by heading to buyraycon.com/Arlo. Buyraycon.com/Arlo. Cool, let me try. Arlo is awesome. Arlo peaked in 2019. Hey! Bolio. Way back when Tears of the Kingdom was first announced, and I mean first announced, you know, back in 1976, Aonuma gave us very few details about the game that we couldn't glean from the trailer, you know? We knew it was a sequel. We knew it had Link and Zelda in it, and we knew that it would be dark. He specifically mentioned that it was going to be on the darker side, kind of like Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. Those scant details were naturally enough to send me completely over the moon, just beside myself with excitement. I mean, Breath of the Wild sequel, done. Where do I sign up? Gimme. And then it's dark on top of that, another dark Zelda, just over the moon. But then he dropped one more additional teeny tiny little tidbit that gave me pause. He said that the sequel to Breath of the Wild would use the same map, the same Hyrule. And this was disappointing. It was pretty disappointing. And the big question is just, why? You know, I've spent years asking this question, is just what's the point? Because, I mean, I was worried, not super worried. I knew no matter what, the game was gonna be good. But, like, still kind of worried a little bit all the same. I even made a video about it, as Arlos tend to do when they are worried about a thing, or happy about a thing, or angry about it, pretty much anything about a thing. Because so much of the enjoyment of Breath of the Wild was in the discovery. Just simple as that. Like, just so much of what I loved about the game was just, oh my gosh, this world is massive. There are so many things to see and find and discover, just pouring over every little nook and cranny. That was what I loved about it. But if you use the same world again, all the same landmarks, all the same surprising little things like that, means familiarity. And familiarity just means less discovery. And if the joy and the magic was in the discovering, then how could it possibly be as magical, as surprising, as fun? And as I've said a million trillion times before, I didn't understand the purpose, because like Nintendo themselves said it only took a couple years to design Breath of the Wild and all of its systems and mechanics, and a couple years to make the world itself. Only a couple years? You couldn't take a couple years during the production of a sequel to give us a whole new world? Especially when you're taking 6 years to make the sequel? You take it even long to do the sequel than you did to the original? We've covered all that before. So more and more trailers, they kept coming out. The game just kept looking better and better. Every time we got a new taste of the game, yeah, better and better. By the end especially, looking really incredible. Everybody's super hyped. But always in the back of my mind, just that question, that why, that little bit of worry about the reused world in the back of my head. I just kept thinking, like, is it possible? Is it even reasonable to expect them to add enough to make this feel new to give us that joy of discovery, you know? To make this anything but a at least slight disappointment. It didn't feel possible to me. It just didn't seem super likely that they would be able to refresh the world to a degree that the sequel was as satisfying to explore. No matter how I looked at it, it just felt like it should have been new. It just should have been new. Then the game came out, and I purchased it and downloaded it onto my Nintendo Switch, and it did not take very long at all. It did not take very much playing of the game itself to realize I was wrong. I was, for lack of a better word, wrongzo. They told us that they were working really hard to make sure that Hyrule was fun to explore again, and they did work very hard. I was doubtful that they could put in enough stuff to make the world fun to explore again, but they did just that. They did that exact thing. They just put new stuff on top of the old stuff and beneath the old stuff to explore. And that right there, that's the most obvious kind of on paper reason it was ultimately okay that they reused this world. They just added so much stuff, you know. In the trailers, we could see sky islands, just big, huge islands up in the sky to explore. But then even on top of that, you got caves. The entire world is littered with caves. Just like cool little cave, little mini dungeons to explore. And I feel like they probably could have gotten away with leaving it there. Maybe it still would have been a little disappointing, but it still would have been a game, you know? It still would have worked. But they did not stop there, did they? Nope, they did a Skyrim. They gave us an entire map spanning underground area. The depths are, you know, a little more limited. There's not as much stuff to do in there. We're gonna save all of that more nuanced discussion for the review. However, you cannot deny the sheer scope of this place. It's the map again, but underground. And that realization is definitely the best part of the game. My favorite part, they didn't spoil that. I was worried about them spoiling other stuff or whatever, but like, nope, they kept that one close to the chest. You know, we saw images and clips of the depths, but like, we didn't know that's what we were getting into. And I am so thankful, because just what an incredible surprise. So that helps a lot. That really, really does help a lot. And I remember like people even say, I know I was one of the ones saying like, yeah, I mean, maybe if we get like an entire underground version of Hyrule, maybe that would help. But there's no way Nintendo's gonna do that. They did it. They just kind of did it. So yeah, all that stuff. That's one reason why the reused map is pretty all right. But the real thing I want to talk about, the real element that I missed, the thing that I had not considered, was the inherent value in revisiting a place. For whatever reason, I guess it's just the way that the trailers looked. It looked like Link was going to a different point in time. You know what I mean? It just looked that way. Everything was different. I thought that, and that made me think it was gonna be disappointing. I did not consider that this would be a direct sequel, taking place immediately, not quite immediately, you know, a few years, but like pretty close after, in the same Hyrule, the actual same Hyrule, not a different time period, same one. I became so connected with the Hyrule from Breath of the Wild that this has changed everything. It is so wonderful just to see what happened next in the story, you know, what all of the people have been doing, what they've been getting up to, what the main characters have been doing, how have they been, how the world itself has continued to evolve. Because Breath of the Wild, you know, it took place, you know, 100 years after this giant war that kind of destroyed just about everything. And now that you've defeated Calamity Ganon, everyone has a chance to kind of rebuild again. So you take that previous familiarity and just seeing how things are going, and then you add on all of these new features, all the fuse in the building, and all of this stuff to explore, all the new caves and the depths and the sky islands and everything. It takes the familiar stuff and makes it fresh again. It makes it seem so much more fresh and new. It's not disappointingly familiar. It's just like, no, you took something old and you did something new with it. It recontextualizes everything. And then, of course, the secrets are all different. It's just, especially with caves and stuff, like the secrets are all different this time, which, in itself is a delight. Discovering new things in these familiar places, it kind of twists on your expectations. And that in itself is its own kind of magical feeling that, again, I hadn't really considered. And it's like, yes, a completely new world. It would have been cool. Obviously, it would have been amazing in its own way. But if they had done that, we would have missed this very unique, very special opportunity. It was an opportunity to not just give us the next Zelda game, whatever that may be, but instead a true sequel that is more of a direct sequel than any other of the small handful of Zelda sequels. This is not a sequel just because it uses the same Link or the same, a lot of the same assets and mechanics or anything like that, but because it is truly the next chapter of the story about this one place and these people. That is not something that has happened in Zelda before. This is a completely new thing, and I think it was very appropriate to do it for Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild was so huge and massive, and we spent it just a completely disproportionately large amount of time in that world versus other versions of Hyrule. And it's funny, because I have no doubt at all that Nintendo did largely do this because it was cheaper. I mean, like, they'll spend a lot on a game, but they also like to be economical. And this was the conservative, economical decision. It was efficient. And that from our perspective, that's not usually the kind of decision that a fan wants. We want big, we want new, we want you to push the envelope, we want you to spend $1 billion on the game. Just give us something as cool as possible. So, like, to a degree, it might have been a money thing, maybe, or just, that was just a perk. But, like, that, whether or not that factored into the decision gave Nintendo a unique opportunity. And that gave us a unique opportunity. And it's one of those cases that are decently common where we would have missed out on something really nice and really special if we were in charge. If I was in charge and I'd be like, no, don't use the same Hyrule. Oh, that's stupid. Give us something new. Would have missed out. Now, I do have some caveats that I would like to mention. Waiting so long did still, even now, even the game is out and it's great and I'm happy about it and everything, even so, waiting this long still did make it a little more difficult to swallow. Many of these themes and these continuations of the story could technically have been explored to a lesser extent through DLC. Not completely, they could not even almost do all of this stuff through DLC. So they decided to make it a whole sequel instead, and that let them go deeper, and that's really, really cool. But exploring that idea of a sequel, it comes with a price. It really did take a long time. And Zelda already has a reputation for having these massively long average production cycles that, the game gets delayed and it just gets so... And if those already long production cycles are getting even longer, if the new standard is, well, it was 4, then it was 5, now it's, 6 plus, then there's a tiny part of me that wonders if it is worth it to get a sequel like this. It's a unique and special experience that I'm enjoying in its own way. But If I can count the number of Zeldas I'll be able to play before I literally die of old age on 2 hands, there's not gonna be that many Zeldas before we die at this rate. Do the math. Then I wonder if maybe a new world would have maybe been the better choice. You know, I hate to say it, but then would that have made the game take 9 years? I don't know. Also, second caveat, while most of the time the game does feel fresh and new and amazing, I will admit there are times, not super rare, not incredibly common, but there are times when I will find an old thing, just something that was in the previous game or like an area, and I'll kind of like look at it, explore it, look for new secrets, and there's nothing. You know, it's just, no, it's really just the same thing again. You know, there are times when I get to an area and it's really not that different, and it does kind of feel like I'm retreading old ground. And like, no matter what they did with a sequel, even if it's unique and all that stuff, I mean, we always knew a sequel, it's not gonna be quite as magical in the exact same way. And you know, even like mechanically, the ice has already been broken. We've had our giant genre series defining Zelda. We knew that the sequel was not gonna hit quite the same. But even considering that, there are still just some elements that are just like, yeah, a completely new world would have felt more magical. If you're going for magical discovery feel, yeah, it would have been overall more magical and all that stuff. There would have been fewer instances of that slightly disappointing familiarity. However, despite those caveats, overall, I am confident in saying that Nintendo made the right decision. Breath of the Wild was so good. It was so groundbreaking in so many ways that it deserved a sequel. If any Zelda was gonna get a direct sequel, Breath of the Wild was the one to choose. The world was so rich and beautiful that it deserved to be explored again. The themes deserved to be explored again. It had some really cool, like, story ideas and characters and things that didn't quite live up to their potential in my eyes, so they deserved another chance to shine and be something great, and in my eyes, that's exactly what's going on in Tears of the Kingdom. This game does so much to set itself apart from Breath of the Wild, and it does so much with this unique opportunity, and I was just wrong about it. Just wrong. It turns out that my worrying was for nothing. I mean, that's very rare. Let me tell you, me worrying over something that ends up not being a problem, highly unusual. But let me know what you think down in the comments, whether or not you think it was worth reusing the world, or if you still preferred something completely new anyway. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. And actually, while you're commenting, start placing bets on how long the next Zelda's gonna take. Because now, like, there's no way they're gonna reuse the same Hyrule a third time. So if the next thing is gonna be completely new and on new hardware, let's start placing bets. I'm gonna say 91 years.